Today I'm going to be doing a video on yoga for stress and anxiety. I believe this is going to be a very important video for a lot of people. We all experience stressors, whether they're positive or negative, though those stressors, especially those negative stressors, even positive stress, if it goes on for more than that fight or flight period, or more than when the stressor is removed from your life, it starts to become anxiety. Stress and anxiety go hand in hand, though they are different. What I just described was stress, a short-term stress. It is only in your life for the amount of time that the stressor is there. So a positive stressor could be getting married or getting a fabulous new job that you've been wanting. In that initial beginning, that sort of rush that you get is that positive stress response. It is the response of the endocrine system and the adrenal glands secreting the stress hormone cortisol and adrenaline. And when that stressor is done, when that job doesn't feel so new anymore, that's when that stressor will decrease. Though we can have negative stressors. Negative stressors tend to give you more of those typical signs of stress, that the physiological symptoms, fatigue, muscle aches, those more emotional symptoms of anger, worry, loneliness even, is what can be experienced as well. Now, here's the kicker. It's why you have to understand it in the way of every rectangle is a square, not every square is a rectangle. So if we know that every anxious person is stressed, but not every stressed person is anxious, we'll understand that anxious thoughts are not anxiety. We have to be aware of these definitions because words have power. Words have meaning and meanings have words. So we have to be sure that we're using the correct terms here. If you've not been clinically diagnosed with anxiety, then even though you're experiencing those symptoms of anxiety, it can be reversed. Even if you've been clinically diagnosed, it can be reversed without medication, without those pharmaceutical medications. We can start with healing the body. A little later, I'm going to discuss vagus nerve and vagal tone, which is important for anxious people. If you're experiencing anxiety, you have low vagal tone, typically. So if you want to know a bit more about that, I will put the timestamps in the description. But for right now, let's go ahead and do some exercises, some yoga, to help you decompress the body while you're actually experiencing those feelings of stress and anxiety. And then a little later, when I discuss the vagus nerve and the vagal tone, we will discuss practical, immediate ways to get that vagus nerve activated. So let's go ahead and get started. So today, you can grab a mat. I was just a bit lazy. And we are going to focus on some moves and postures that can help you alleviate those feelings of tightness in the torso whenever we are experiencing stress or anxiety. So what we're going to go ahead and do is come on to all fours, get into tabletop position. Now, this is a movement I really love to do whenever I would experience symptoms of anxiety. It would really impact my stomach. I experienced more so of a retching anxiety, so not only was my stomach tightening, it was causing just a general constriction in the throat region, which made me gag. It's so fascinating how the body is interconnected and how stress and procrastination can lead to these disastrous physiological symptoms. So I experienced it. I don't want you to. So what I would do whenever I was experiencing that abdominal tightness and pain, I would come here on all fours, and I would flow into a movement of a cat, cow, into a puppy pose, and then back into a child's pose. So let me demonstrate. So first, I will engage my breath, trying to breathe into the belly button, feeling the belly button go back onto the spine. Inhale, belly button reaching the spine. Exhale, belly button reaching to the ground. Inhale, round out that back. Going to come into a cat. Here, I'm really emphasizing my lower abdomen sucking in. Wearing a bit of a baggy shirt today. Really sucking in that lower abdomen, pulling the belly button as much to the back of the spine as I can. Exhale, come into our cow, arching the back. Inhale, cat, and as we're cat, we are lowering the seat in between the feet, opening up the knees just ever so slightly, coming into child's pose. Now you can keep the shoulders having less of a stretch, less of a flexion there, putting them by your sides. Breathing here, want to get really deep breaths here. Inhale, slowly coming up, arching the back. Exhale. On this cow, we're going to lower the chest down, coming into an inversion or puppy pose. When I'm doing this, I like to keep my hands next to me. I like to mitigate the movement as much as possible because, when I am feeling those feelings, that nausea, too much movement would set me off. So keeping a very flowed movement is important. And here, while I'm in puppy pose, I'm really feeling the stretch in the front of the abdomen. This area it needs to open up. The muscles are tightening here, as well as the stomach and diaphragm. We want to open up that area and get as big of a stretch as we possibly can. Now go ahead and press up. Cat, sinking back into that child's pose. Now I'm going to flow through it. Inversions help me so much whenever I'm experiencing nausea. So typically I would do this flow. Back into child's pose. Cow into puppy pose. Keep that belly button breathing. Inhale, cat, sinking back, child's pose. Breathing really deeply here. Inhale, cat, cow, bringing the chest down into a puppy pose. Undulating like this really help my body open up those muscles in the abdomen, giving more space there, allowing me to take those complete breaths without feeling like I'm choking. So that choking feeling is what resulted in the gagging and the retching. So we want those breaths to be full and complete and expansive. Inhale, cat. Sinking back, child's pose. Inhale, cat. Up, cow. Allowing the chest to sink down. Now, this is good to do anytime you are feeling stressed. I know I was emphasizing the nausea I was feeling, but any stress symptoms, you want to open up this respiratory and torso, the thoracic region of the body. The thoracic spine is where we twist, where our solar plexus is located. So that mid torso area is where we want to open up. Cat. Now from here, you can continue the undulation, just like this. I'm breathing deeply with each movement. Now, go ahead and come back to a neutral tabletop. The neutral spine. Tailbone is tucked. Breathing into that lower abdomen here. Feel that engaged? This is my lower abdomen not engaged. This is me engaging and pulling in here. The Mula lock. This is something that is going to be important as well, just in normal yoga. But when engaging the lower abdomen, it's helped stimulating that small intestine and the other vagal nerves. The vagus nerve comes from our brain to our groin. It shoots all the way down. So want to be able to activate all parts of our body. And this Mula lock is similar to a Kegel. You want to engage the lower abdomen. And if you're a woman, Kegeling the vaginal muscles and anal muscles. If you're a man, then just strictly the rectal anal region. It's pulling up and in. This is engaging the entire pelvic floor. When we engage that lower abdomen, it is called the Mula lock. Mula being the root chakra. We have 3 locks in our body. The Mula lock and the cloud buster, and then we have our heart opener lock in the middle. Keep breathing here. I like to just keep engaging that core and feel into my body. Remember, your anxiety is happening in the gut. It is a mind killer. It is the mind at causing the illness, the disease, but the body is listening to the mind and creating the environment, the ecosystem for you to not be in homeostasis, for you to feel those feelings of stress and anxiety. So, want to keep on encouraging that lower abdomen, keep on encouraging that lock, and then release. We're going to hold that once more. Inhale, lower abdomen comes in, Kegeling the pelvic floor muscles. This was really good for me. It helped me focus in a different area of my torso, so I wasn't focusing on that ball in my stomach. And then exhale. Gonna go ahead and arch that back. Inhale, concave. Exhale, neutral spine. Inhale, we're going to tuck those toes and press up into a downward facing dog. I always like to come here again. As I said, inversions really would help soothe my nausea. So staying in this inverted place, I usually would. or I would continue into that ebb flow, that cat-cow, into child's pose and puppy pose to alleviate some of that nausea if this right here was triggering it too much. This is a more severe inversion, but remaining here, heels down, pressing into the ground, chin tucked, keeping that neck, the back of the neck nice and long, keeping that spine elongated. And again, that Mula lock coming in here. It's going to feel a little bit different, the body in a different posture. But again, engaging that lower abdomen and then pulling up through the pelvic floor, through the rectal area or the vaginal area, and or both. Keep pulling in and release. You can go ahead and bend at the knees. It's just, I notice a lot of movement is what helps. Just moving the body, that even in itself is helping me stretch in the front of my abdomen. You may be feeling the stretch more in your hamstrings. My hamstrings are pretty flexible, so I start to feel the stretch elsewhere. Inhale, go ahead and drop back down to tabletop. Exhale, cross at the ankles. Let's go ahead and roll on over those ankles into staff pose. So honestly, this pose would kind of trigger my nausea because of the tightness here, or the tightness in the hips. It doesn't open up my lower abdomen region, allowing my breath, feels like it allows my breath to expand more. So what I typically do is sort of bend at the knees, raise up my arms, and drop that one arm, wrap it around my torso. I'm going to bend to the left with that right arm up, keeping my hips very square and centered. Opening up the side of that body. Now we're going to sort of rotate just at the thoracic spine, rotating ever so slightly. Gaze is up. Exhale, release that. Go ahead and drop that arm. Inhale, gonna raise the left arm up, wrapping the right arm around the torso. Going to drop to the side, feeling a good stretch in the side of the body. Breathing into this, still doing those belly button breaths. As that belly button seeps back to the spine, it is engaging that vagus nerve, hopefully triggering the vagal response. Inhale, turning in the thoracic spine, gonna continue to stretch. Whenever I turn, I tend to feel this stretch in a few more isolated muscles on this side of the body. If you're feeling any pain in the back, you don't want to feel that, you're stretching a little too to the side. Let's bring it back into the middle. All right, exhale, release that stretch. Inhale, a lot of us carry tension in the shoulders and in the neck. So what I like to do here is just taking the head over, trying to keep the spine as neutral as possible, just tilting that head over. And as I'm doing this, I'm pressing on that trap muscle. Excuse me, it could be the deltoid. Need to brush up on my anatomy of the shoulder girdle. But holding here and pressing here, it's giving me a stretch here and decompressing that muscle in the shoulder. A lot of us have tension there because of the fascia being bound. So, want to just give slight pressure there. Allows the fascia to release a bit. Over time, of course, these postures, they work in that moment of intense feelings in the body, though they will need to be done over time to actually trigger the vagal response. Okay, go ahead and release that. I'm going to tilt on to the other side, pressing into that muscle. Hold in here. I'm not really holding onto my head. I'm just resting my hand on top. Do a good press. You can press through the muscles on the shoulder as well. Release that. Now we're going to tilt the head forward, tucking the chin. Now here with a nice straight back, we want to just give a little massage to the muscles surrounding the spine. You'll feel those pokey spinal regions. We want to massage next to them. These are ways to just massage your body, breathe some life back into those spaces that are stagnant, that are starting to crystallize and harden. Breathe in some more circulation in there. Your circulation, your blood circulation is really important for that vagal tone, the vagal response to occur. If the blood isn't circulating properly, then we won't get that vagal response. Vagal tone, people who are actually anxious and experiencing anxiety, remember that definition in the beginning, they're experiencing stress even in the absence of a stressor. That is a surefire sign that you have anxiety. And anxiety typically means that you have a low vagal tone, which means your vagal response, which is that rest and digest, the opposite of the parasympathetic nervous system, is not being triggered properly. So it will result in, let's say, you get a nasty comment on something you posted and it ruins your entire day. Or someone cuts you off in traffic, ruins your whole day. All you can think about is ruminating over it, worrying, what would you have done differently? Well, what, in this state of what if, when that is a sign of worrying for the future. We want to pull ourselves out of that state of what if, and the way to do that is to stimulate the vagal response. So I have a few ways to stimulate that vagal response, but before I do that, I just want to actually tell you what the vagal nerve is. I discussed it a bit prior, but the vagus nerve, it, like I mentioned, connects from our brain to our groin. It's connected through the medulla oblongata. This is an area of the brain that largely regulates the respiratory and cardiovascular areas of the body systems. And so that is why it has a big role in alleviating the feelings of anxiousness and stress. When we trigger that vagus nerve, it will allow the heart rate to start to decrease. It'll allow the breath, the breathing, to be more expansive and complete because those respiratory pathways aren't being blocked by our muscles sort of contracting and constricting the ribs from being able to expand. So another interesting thing about the vagus nerve is that it connects to our gut. Now, I mentioned a little bit before that the hypothalamus is in charge of sending the signals to the endocrine system to release whatever hormone. But largely the hormones related to stress are secreted in the gut. So this is why having a healthy gut microbiome is of the utmost importance. If you watched my video of the solar plexus, which is why it's so fascinating that this system in our body works almost independently, and then in an esoteric sense, it is your independent self outside of you. So it's fascinating how everything interconnects, but energy is consistent. That's the one truth in this world. Uh, so understanding that having a healthy gut will have a healthy brain and you will have a healthy life is your best way of coping and dealing with symptoms of anxiety or stress. So what we're going to do here is actually physically stimulate the vagus nerve. The closest, most thinnest portion of our body from the outer wall to the inner wall is our belly button. This is why when, you press into your belly button, you get these electric kind of tinges, either, in your throat. I've heard of someone that when they press their belly button makes them salivate. It makes sense. That's where the vagus nerve is largely doing its job. Again, with the medulla oblongata, we are controlling the respiratory and the cardiovascular area. So that's that upper chest. And then the other job it has is in the thoracic area, which is where our belly button is. So we want to stimulate the vagus nerve, but first we're going to actually kind of warm up the belly button. So I like to just sort of massage around the belly button. Now, what I was discussing with that study, it is seen that people with more of a cold abdomen region tend to have harder intestines, which in turn is what is causing that inability, that rigidness in the lower body. It's not allowing the vagal response to affect the rest of the bodily system. Now, a person with warmth and vitality, a warm belly, usually has softer intestines, and that's going to improve your blood circulation and overall improve your health and vitality. So we're still massaging into the belly. Now I want you to actually start massaging the belly button, pressing into that belly button, feeling the feelings you feel. When I press into my belly button, I get a surge into my shoulders, which is interesting. A lot of people feel it different places. Keep pressing. We're going to press a total of 30 times. I'm on 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. All right, now massage around the belly button. Already doing that, I can tell I am stimulating my vagal response because I'm starting to sweat. The heat in my body is starting to raise up. But if you're not feeling that, let's go for a few more rounds. All right. So now I'm going to take my thumb just to get a deeper push into the belly button, and taking the opposing hand, putting it on the back. Now we're going to pump it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Once more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now come draping the torso over to the right side. Draping the torso over to the left. Skin a little bend in that stomach area. I'm feeling energized, and I know it's the vagal response. So let's do it one more time. And again, if you're still not feeling this after this round, continue to pump the belly button. What we're going to do this time is take both thumbs and pump the belly button with both. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You see how deep I'm going? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. One more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ooh. Release. My palms are getting a little more sweaty. My feet are a little less cool than they were before. If you feel that didn't do much for you, then let's go through some ways to physically trigger that response. So the first maneuver I'm going to talk about is simply icing. If we apply an ice pack or some super cold water, but an ice pack is more of a surefire way to get this response, and it's consistent in its physiological response. So put an ice pack on the cheeks, the underside of the chin where the jaw kind of meets the neck, and onto the neck. And it's going to trigger what's called the mammalian dive reflex. This is going to decrease the heart rate with that cooling, increase the heart rate variability, which is automatically going to cause a vagus nerve reset. So again, how you do that is getting a cold press or putting cold water on the cheeks and the area where the neck meets the jaw, and importantly, the sides of the neck. It's going to trigger a vagus nerve reset when you're in just that thick of it in the moment and you need a immediate release. The next one we're going to talk about is a modified Valsalva movement or maneuver. This is done in emergency rooms or anything when we got that runaway heartbeat that just keeps going and going and going. We do this movement and it actually causes an immediate decrease in the heart rate. With that being said, if you have issues with, blood pressure like hypertension, glaucoma, high blood pressure, then definitely talk to your doctor before you complete this posture, as it will have an immediate effect on your blood pressure. So what we're going to do first is, for 15 seconds, we are going to exhale as hard as we can. And what that's going to do is build the intrathoracic pressure, or thoracic spine region, where we twist and bend, and more importantly, where that gut sits, where our stomach solar plexus sits, that bundle of nerves there that's connected into the vagus nerve. So building up the pressure there for 15 seconds. When we release the pressure, we will go ahead and lay down supine, elevating our legs at about 45 degrees. You can have a stool or a chair. I'm just going to use my dresser here. So let's get started. So do a good exhale. Inhale. Real big. Plug the nose and the mouth. Now exhale as hard as you can, building the pressure. Release. Elevate those legs at a 45-degree angle. This is the modification here. And breathe here for another 15 seconds. All right, and after that 15 seconds is up, go ahead and come back to your neutral position that you started in. Whew. And you should be able to feel something happening in your body when you're laying down with the feet elevated. I definitely could feel the blood. It's the only way I could explain it. The blood circulating in my body at a different rate. It's quite fascinating. And that move, if you found that first 15 seconds exhaling, 15 seconds with the feet elevated wasn't enough for you, you can actually complete this up to 4 times in a row. I usually find that like once or twice. You see that once I actually felt it. The second go round, I'll probably feel it even more intensely. I even felt a bit of a decrease in my body's temperature, and it's kind of raising again, which is fascinating. So it could just be the draftiness here. Though, those were some ways to immediately trigger the vagal response. Now, the belly button pumping is something that you can do every day, really, to trigger that vagal tone to improve, to have a higher vagal tone. So remember the difference there. Low vagal tone, you'll feel symptoms of anxiety and stress. So feeling that wired feeling, but you're super tired, overwhelmed, anxious, worried. You will feel that with low vagal tone. A high vagal tone, you will be able to move along the day in the presence or absence of those stressors. You know, your body is able to fully process the parasympathetic response with the vagus nerve. Whereas someone with low vagal tone, their body is not able to successfully trigger that parasympathetic response with the vagal nerve. So, I mean, I threw a lot of technical terms at you, but I hope that it can actually help you understand the science of stress and anxiety, and that it's largely sitting in here. So what we can do is open up this chest area with the exercises I did before, and then also having some ways to physically stimulate the vagus nerve, whether it's belly button therapy, where you actually buy the device to poke into the belly button. If you don't want to buy something extra, do what we were doing today, pumping with the thumbs and the fingers, getting deeper and deeper each time. The other way is the cold therapy, putting an ice pack on the cheek or the neck to trigger that mammalian dive reflex. The next way, and that final way that I showed you there, is the modified Valsalva movement. That is going to have an immediate impact on your blood pressure, your blood circulation. If you have one of those fancy watches that measures your heart rate, it would be very fascinating to do that and see how much your heart rate decreases. So it's very interesting how the science of stress and anxiety works. And once we understand the science, we understand the areas of the body that's impacted, and it can allow us to more effectively treat ourselves without having to, again, take those pharmaceuticals. So I hope all in all that gave you some helpful information that you can take with you into the future. Again, stress and anxiety are things that we are naturally going to experience in our life. What we can do is have ways of improving our vagal tone. And when our vagal tone is low, we can have ways to calm and soothe the body. With all that being said, I hope today brought you a little bit more peace. This is what we did here. And if it didn't, I'm sure there's a number somewhere that you can call and complain to. So, namaste. Have a peaceful day. Bye.